This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
We're recording.
All right. It is 6:01 p.m. I will now call to order the December 12th, 2022 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I've not received any that aren't for 93 Northampton Street notice of intent that's coming up.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to public hearings. Our first order of business is a public hearing for a notice of intent filed by Furrow Engineering on behalf of Tasty Top Development LLC for a new mixed-use commercial and residential development with associated stormwater management system at 93, 95, and 97 Northampton Street at 128, blocks 112, 113, and 114. The request was filed on 11/23/2022, and we are still awaiting a Mass DEP file number. This is a large project, so it would be unlikely that we would conclude the hearing tonight as it is, but we cannot do that without a file number from Mass DEP. So we know that this will be continued to the next meeting.
When? Oh, you received it. This was today at 4? I couldn't get it. Okay. We have received it. Yes.
Okay. Stand corrected.
It's 1510322. Thank you.
1510322.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then that's sends to, I haven't read the comments yet.
Great. All right. Do we have someone here to speak for this item?
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Don Abel. I'm an attorney in the city. I'm here representing on behalf of Tasty Top Development. Also present tonight are staff from Furrow Engineering. Should you have any questions, presented the notice of intent to install the project as outlined on the notice of intent. And just we'll wait to see if you have any questions as to what's the materials.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and read the DEP comments into the record. They appear to be just a couple of items. Note that the issuance of a file number indicates only completeness of submittal, not approval of application. Please note the following. Number one, cross sections of the stream crossing should indicate the boundary of inland bank and all other applicable resource areas. Providing this information would be helpful in demonstrating that the crossing meets the Massachusetts River and Stream Crossing Standards. Number two, the Manhan River is considered a cold water fishery and critical areas. Preventing sediment from entering the water and maintaining and or increasing shading of the water column is important to protecting this valuable resource. A cold water fishery is a water body, stream, river, or tributary thereto, used by reproducing cold water fish to meet one or more of their life history requirements. Cold water fisheries are particularly sensitive habitats. That's the extent of the comments there. I have a number of comments to get us started. We've also received preliminary comments from the city engineer, as well as some outside comments submitted by various members of the public. So first off, on the NOI itself, I note that the project type on the NOI form on page 2, the only thing indicated was the limited project type for E, construction of roadway to access upland land of the same owner. In fact, the project seems to also propose substantial residential development, roadways, and parking all within jurisdictional areas, as well as substantial removal of trees from the steep slopes in jurisdictional areas. So I think that needs to be corrected. It also appears from the plans that there are going to be water and sanitary lines carried through BBW bank and the intermittent stream, presumably buried underneath the ground. I'm seeing shaking heads. I don't know if that's members of the public, but I haven't seen any indication in the NOI of resource area impacts. It's indicated as buffer zone only. Can you shed any light on those items to start?
Luke Scholter with Borough Engineering. The water and sanitary sewer will be contained within the bridge, so the wetland resource area will not be affected. There will not be any digging within the resource area. It will all span over the entire channel.
So everything's going to be suspended and insulated above ground?
Correct.
And can you explain your thinking on the project type?
Missed box. That was a missed box. We'll correct that and get you a corrected version for the next meeting.
And Cassie, will they need to refile that through Mass DEP if they're making corrections to the NOI form itself?
I'm not sure. I guess I can ask Tom Griskus, the DEP person who issued the file number. Okay. I'll ask him. It may be something that they can just administratively tell him and then they can make the change.
Okay, great. I also note in various places the project is described as redevelopment and the site as being primarily previously developed. The stormwater report treats it a little bit differently as mixed redevelopment and new development. I think that, for the record, I think it's worth stating that much of this property was not previously developed. It was either wooded or agricultural use in the past. So I just wanted to make that clarification. I had difficulty with the digital plans being able to read them for others.
Missing sections. When I tried to print some of them, there's missing quadrants. But
I think that may have been intentional. Are there certain views that only have a small section in the corner of a page?
There's enlarged views of the overall plan, but they should be called out on.
Like the South Garden sections with the blown out, but they didn't show the rest of it.
that's correct. Yeah.
Do you have something else?
No, that's what I was thinking that fill the size of the document should not be.
But have the total plan about that?
Well, there was, I was able to print out some total plan pieces, but when I see something like that, it's there's something wrong.
There's a hard copy right behind you.
The big version.
We can,
yeah.
if there's a certain sheet that you're thinking about, we can pull up. That's the way it's supposed to look. Isn't the hard copy right behind you?
I'm sorry, can you state your name for the record?
Frank Demarinis.
And you're with?
I'm with Tasty Top Development.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if we want, the digital copy needs to be right. I guess we can check to make sure.
Yeah, we think.
Is that what you're talking about,
I
Jay?
think what you're referring to was intentional.
Well, things like that just didn't seem to, they seemed unusual to me.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That is correct. It was a small corner of the property. So
Okay.
Was anyone else having difficulty though with legibility, or was it just my computer acting up? I was not able, when I zoomed in, to read the text. It was blurry. It was just me.
The text in the notes was a little blurry.
So if you could, I was not able to read the text enough to discern what it said. So if we could get a higher resolution version of the digital plans, that would be helpful.
We'll work on that.
I also wanted to confirm, I didn't see, again, I couldn't read the details and notes, but I didn't see any indication of the source of the wetland flagging. So I wanted to confirm that these are the flagging locations that were approved and agreed upon after the peer review. Is that accurate?
They are, yeah. GZA, Geo-Environmental went out and identified and delineated the wetland, and there were multiple back and forths between GZA and Stockman Associates. And then the final wetland flags were surveyed by our office. And those are the flags that you see on the plans today.
If that note is not on there indicating the source and date of those, could you please add it?
Yes, yeah, I believe it is, but I'll double check.
Right, I think that was it as far as sort of housekeeping items.
Oh, I had one more, I'm sorry, for a housekeeping item.
Mhm.
On the NOI form, I just saw this today. It doesn't have checked off that there is priority habitat on there. I know you guys did submit your letter to there, but again, it's just not checked off on the box that there's going to be any impacts, but just like one corner of one of the buildings does encroach on there.
Priority or estimated?
Oh, I'm not sure. Yeah.
It doesn't give me a check for priority,
Okay.
and we're not working within estimated.
Okay.
So it didn't feel appropriate to check it as yes.
Okay.
It's outside limit of work.
All right.
All right, so I want to skip over to the stormwater report because I know there are a number of questions and comments there. I think, Cassie, do you want to read the city engineer's comments into the record for us?
Yeah,
That would be a good starting
I
place.
can do that. And I just received these today, so, okay, so this is from Dan Murphy, the city engineer, who has been, he's began his review of the stormwater drainage report that was submitted by the applicant. The comments are as follows. Some initial thoughts. I'm trying to understand how total post-development storm volumes for the site can be lower with all the added pavement and buildings and no proposed infiltration. Brian confirmed that they were taking no credit for infiltration. There are 7 basins proposed from 4 to 6 feet deep, so that captured volume could be why the volumes are lower. But the intent of the city ordinance would be to include the basin volumes for pre and post analysis, as the water will still leave the site since there is no infiltration as the basins draw down. Plans show existing subcatchments 1 and 2 are 27.33 acres, but the calcs show a 29.95 show as 29.95 acres. I have some current concerns about the existing subcatchments and think that the 2 analysis points may not be enough for the site. A significant portion of subcatchment 1 drains to the southwest and not through analysis point 1. A significant portion of subcatchment 2 drains to the east and not through analysis point 1. I asked how they characterize majority of sites as HSGD when only showing boring/test pits for about 25% of the site. Brian said the rest of the site was informally looked at. I also asked about perk tests, and Brian said there have been no perk tests done on site. It's unclear how a site with poor soils can meet the stormwater ordinance volume requirements. I'm very happy to continue my review, but you may want to have this peer reviewed. And that's from Dan Murphy.
Thank you, Kathy. So I think Dan's comments hit on a couple of major issues. The first being the pre and post calculations. There have been public comments received as well, and I had the same interpretation that it's hard intuitively to imagine how the runoff volumes could be reduced when we're going to such an increase in development and there's no infiltration proposed. I don't know, do you want to add anything to that as our resident stormwater expert?
No.
Okay. So there's a concern there with the calculations and the methodology. And I think as the city engineer pointed out, the intent of the ordinance would be that since the stormwater is still leaving the site and not being infiltrated, it needs to be included in those post-development calculations. And I think that's going to dramatically change the picture in terms of whether you're meeting the requirements. There is also concern with phosphorus removal, since nothing's being retained on site. I don't see that there's any phosphorus removal provided, and that's something that the requirement is treating 60% of phosphorus, so that needs to be examined, and alternative options need to be proposed. As far as the soils and testing, again, the city engineer, some of the other reviewers, and myself all question the seemingly limited information on soils that was provided in the report, and the conclusion that everything was hydrologic soil group D, and therefore the infiltration was not an option worth exploring. And taking a look at the data that was provided from the on-site sewage disposal data forms and the borings, it seems that there is, in fact, several feet of sand and sandy soils in all of the locations that were examined. So I was having a little bit of a hard time imagining why no infiltration would be possible and why those would all be coming up in your interpretation as hydrologic soil group D.
Say Rich again, it's very nice.
So I think at this point, we'll hold out responding to any of the stormwater comments, since we haven't received any comments ourselves from the city engineer. We just do the first, we heard those comments. So if it's all right with you, we'll work with the city engineer, do some back and forth with them to get a better understanding of the issues of them, so we can properly respond to them.
Okay. I think we'll probably also be looking for additional soils information. And it sounds like no infiltration testing was done on site. Is that accurate?
We will provide additional testing. We'll do test bits and log them throughout the areas and at the detention basins. We did evaluate the soil out there by 2 licensed soil evaluators, so we're comfortable with our assumptions. But we'll have it documented and presented to the board. And as it relates to the sand, it was isolated to a couple areas really up front where those sand logs that could be considered a B-type soil. But if it's sand, it was like a very silty sand, or not, it wasn't a sand, it was a sandy silt. And it was mostly silty loam everywhere, very tight, very aggressively tight.
Okay, that is not what I was seeing reflected in the information that was submitted.
Yeah.
So maybe there are additional logs or
I'll look at
soils.
those logs. We'll do test bits right exactly at those borings that was done for Stop and Shop. Yeah.
Okay, because I was seeing almost all sandy loam up to like 6 feet deep.
Right. So sandy loam that's more of a C or D type soil. Sandy's the adjective, loam of the primary.
How's the map for the next CS?
It's mapped. Brian, you want to try to address it?
Sorry, I didn't get a question. How's it mapped within RCS? Just
It's got A, B, C, and D, I believe, shown. It's on our drainage figures, which I probably don't have full size with me.
I might have a digital. I can potentially throw it on the TV if you want me to. Maybe. Do you guys want me to, or? I have the drainage report, is it included in the report?
they have an extra hard copies of the thing, or
Of the drainage report, or there's a copy in there, and then of the NOI as well, plus the narrative. I have an 11 by 17 of the plans there as well, again, and I can print off as many of those if you like, but.
yeah, my time I had for was mostly just trying to orient myself with what was going on. Yeah. here.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want more full size like that hard copies or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. 1x7.
Okay, yeah, I can get that.
Yeah.
I have
How
one
many
there, but
copies of these do we have?
I just print that one today, but I can print more. It's easy to do.
I'd like to have one as well.
Okay.
You may not be able to read some of the text on the 11x17 still. That's all.
Okay.
We can bring some more full-size plans if that's what you need. I have,
Yeah.
would you like 3 or 4 more sets? Or?
It's up to you guys.
If the 11x17 are readable, that's better for me. But
I'll bring a couple more sets in if you want them.
Great, thank you. But yeah, I'll also print the 11x17s. Because you're just gonna bring the full size. Yeah, that sounds good.
Anybody-
The stormwater standards also require that LID be considered, and I didn't see any indication in the report that that had been done. Can you speak to that at all?
Oh, that's not your input.
no. I can just double check. So you guys still your own.
Yeah.
We can prepare a narrative about the LIDs that were considered. I was trying to find my checklist in here, but I'm not quick enough to do it on the spot. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
I know the ones that we do have, obviously, the most applicable to the commission, there's no disturbance to resource areas, roads. Everything's outside of the jurisdictional areas. And we do have some, what I would call cluster development, where everything is as tight as it can be. I think we're leaving about 10 acres of the site undisturbed at the end of the day, out of the 29 acres.
In the context of the stormwater standards, when I talk about LID, I think of that as meaning various infiltration practices, rain gardens, bioretention, those types of practices. And it may be that, you're assuming, because you assumed that everything was hydrologic soil group D, that none of that was appropriate, but we'd like to see a more thorough investigation and explanation for those alternatives. Sure. There's a table of water quality volume. I'm not sure where that was. I think in one of the appendices. But the total water quality volume was based on 4 acres, and I believe that your table is not totaling correctly, and that your math was simply wrong. It might be Appendix E.
Yeah, the individual rows are accurate, but the total definitely didn't carry down right for the acreage and the volume.
Dan, is TV 40 still considered appropriate for analysis?
For what?
For runoff calculations?
I haven't seen it in a long time.
I'm not sure if it's officially allowed still, but I would say that it is considered fairly out of date at this point in a changing climate to use TP40 data when there are better sources to calculate rainfall volumes, which would give a more accurate picture of the likely runoff that you would actually expect in the useful life of this project, which I presume is hopefully going to be many decades.
Times it's like heard anybody say TP40, that's what catch up.
Are you referring to the overall hydraulic analysis or back to that table?
No, I'm at the let's see, there are no page numbers, but in section 2, the stormwater runoff analysis, rainfall depth calculations, and the assumptions of the size of your storms for 2, 10, 25, 100 year.
I was hearing TD40, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
TP40,
Yeah.
technical paper 40. Does your guys' stormwater ordinance reference something different?
I'm not sure what the stormwater ordinance says.
I don't know either. We can
What
pull
would
it
you
up.
prefer that we use?
What would you call best practice these days?
Tier 20, tier 55 stuff.
I mean, all our runoff is done with TR 55. That paper just gave me the depths of the storm events. HydroCAD uses TR 55. Technical paper 40 just gives me the runoff, the rainfall depth.
Okay. Well, we would use,
No,
NOAA
that's,
Atlas
yeah.
14. Yeah,
But
For the rainfall depths.
catch up. One thing I was noting is that it's a little bit hard to follow the stormwater intent since the stormwater drain lines are on the utilities plan and the grading is on the grading plan. So unless I was missing it, it's kind of hard to get an overall impression of how those things work together.
Yes, I had that noted as well. So switching back over to the plans,
Sorry.
I would definitely like to see a sheet that has the full stormwater system as it functions together, including the basins, all of the outflow structures, the pipes, the catch basins, everything together, because it is separated now and very hard to interpret how it all plays together.
Yeah, we can definitely put that plan together for you and get it to you.
Dan, any other comments on stormwater management report? I don't know how well you had a chance to review.
Getting test bits and some idea of filtration would be good. One thing that sticks in my mind from whatever year that was, that we did the INRAD or whatever it was, 2007, 2008 or whatever, is the readily erodible nature of these soils. And there was one, we call them dingles in town, that at that time had moved significantly, pretty quickly from in between when the survey was done in 2004, 2007 or whatever. And when we were out outside in 2008, it progressed like 50 feet or something like that, with a lot of trees freshly fallen. And we'd seen that area on the side of one of those steep slopes. I'm not sure where it relates to development, but where kind of like a little shelf area is left off and was now down the slope. We were talking about the vegetation on it, but it was, sort of down the landscape. So in my mind, making sure that the stormwater management systems and runoff doesn't accelerate those sorts of slope issues. It's pretty important. Yeah, and like I said, I'm still been trying to orient myself with the drawing where everything is. I hate to say it, but like it might be nice. So I haven't been able to go to day site visits.
Right.
Not much. I might benefit from like a weekend type site visit where not that my weekends are like free anymore either, but, for something, I mean, yeah, I guess it's daylight and it's pretty early afternoon, so.
It's hard.
What did I say about, Saturday or something?
I apologize, yeah, for not, right.
Yeah, 'cause you went up like yesterday or today, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
but I haven't been available on the weekends to do it, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be hard for me for the rest of this month to do on the weekends, but potentially, if I don't need to be there, if there's a way that someone else familiar with the project, one of the applicant people could meet with someone, we can organize it that way. I don't know if you guys are available.
Yeah, we're available. We can meet out there anytime.
Okay, then I'll try to organize that before the next meeting, if that works for everybody.
Yeah.
I'll try to, what's that? After Christmas? Yeah, I know, yeah, then I might have my more weekends free, but we can figure it out. We can do, multiple ones too that I can go to or whatever, but we can figure it out.
Because our next meeting isn't until January 9th, correct?
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe if we shoot for that, if the weather cooperates, maybe we shoot for that, the 7th, Saturday before that meeting.
Okay, I should be able to go to
And
that.
it would be fresh in everyone's minds
Yeah.
too. I think if we tried to do it sooner, we will have forgotten
It's open now.
the details. Yeah.
Right.
Change without notice.
Right. Would that be okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. It is challenging sometimes for commission members to make the daytime visits, and we are limited on evening daylight. We don't have evening daylight.
Yeah.
Adding on to some of what Commissioner Buttrick was saying, I was concerned with the proximity of the detention basins to the steep slopes. Some of them even seem to be graded into the slope itself, where the slope was kind of being built up to create the outer wall. And given the nature of the erodibility that we've seen on, sites adjacent to this and other parts of town, knowing our soils, I think that's concerning. Typically, we look for, and I forget which standard it is, but we typically look for those basins to be at least 50 feet back from the top of the slope. And I didn't have scalable plans that I was looking at on my computer, but it did appear that we had that kind of distance.
I think that's a stormwater handbook. Standard.
You're right.
Or requirement in the absence of like additional information on slope stability or whatever.
Right.
Yep.
I also have some significant questions about how the slopes are going to be stabilized in all of the areas where tree cover is being removed and we're going to lose all of the deep-rooted vegetation. Again, knowing how slopes tend to behave in this part of the city, I think that stabilization is going to be a real concern in some of those locations. I think there's at least one location where a swale is proposed that appears to be pointing water right towards the steep slope, which seems like an erosion problem waiting to happen. I may have been misinterpreting that because, again, different parts of the drainage system were separated on different sheets, but that was something that jumped out at me. I would like to see detail as to exactly how you are meeting each element of the stream crossing standards, and that seems to be one of the things that DEP was focusing in on as well. It doesn't appear that you're meeting 1.2 times bank pull for starters, based on what I could tell from the profile and the width of the structure. And I questioned whether you really would not have any impacts to bank or other resource areas during the installation of the footings for that structure. So again, I'm not convinced that there are no actual resource impacts. I'd like to see a more thorough demonstration of that or recalculation if necessary. As far as erosion controls go, the silt fence that's proposed, especially on the steep slope areas along the resource area edges, I think it would probably be wise to back that up with straw bales for additional protection. I think that given the steepness of the slope and the importance of protecting the resource areas below, that the silt fence alone may not be sufficient. And in addition to the question about long-term stabilization, I'd like to see a lot more detail about how the cleared slopes are going to be kept stable during construction. Because we think as soon as those trees are removed, we're going to start to see things move around.
Yeah, I echo the street process standard comments, particular, but also the others.
We also have the ongoing issue of the related enforcement order on this property and the restoration plan that has not yet been carried out. And so that's something that eventually we're going to want to discuss some conditions related to restoration that would be incorporated into the order of conditions for this project. But I think we're a ways from needing to get into those details, because there's a lot of other questions to be worked out first. Are there other comments from other members of the commission?
Curious about one corner of the building, looks like it went over the 100-foot buffer. So what kind of a, what's the word, where you compensate wetlands?
There are a few locations where there's parking and buildings in the buffer zone. The buffer zone itself does not have a performance standard that requires compensation or replication. So that isn't necessarily a concern. I think the bigger concern for the buffer zone impacts, in my mind, is the clearing and the potential for the soils to move and what that could mean for the down gradient resource areas. That's, I think, the main thing that we want to make sure that we're comfortable that we're not going to have sort of ripple effects that are going to impact those areas down the road.
Yeah, we've heard your concerns and noted them, and we'll work to address all those concerns. Get back to you
And I
before the
wasn't
next meeting.
sure, earlier there was something said about priority habitat area. I didn't quite hear what you said about where, I know that's technically not in our jurisdiction, but there's a lot of priority habitats, so.
Yeah,
are
so
we
we
in touch with National Heritage?
we submitted with the Mass Fish and Wildlife. We submitted for any SB review of the priority habitats. And we haven't received any comments yet, but we do anticipate receiving comments soon.
Have you heard anything back from them yet at all?
We haven't heard anything back from them yet. No comments yet.
And that is, again, for the record, that is another set of comments that we have to have before we can issue anything. So again, not an issue at the moment because we're not ready to do that anyways, but just keep in mind. Anything further from you?
You know, I mean, it might be nice to show those utilities in the bridge, fit all over the bridge, just so it's shown.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. That wasn't clear from the.
Yeah, and just to get into more details, they're not going to be suspended from the bridge. They're actually, it's going to be a concrete deck, reinforced with steel beams and rebar, and then above it there's going to be 3 to 4 feet of bedding sand, and it'll be actually in the bedding sand itself. We'll show elevations and details of that in the bedding sand between the top of the deck and the top of pavement.
So it's really more of a culvert than a bridge.
It's a bridge. There's a foundation on each side with a concrete deck on the top of it, and then there's 3 feet of sand and then pavement on the top of it.
Okay.
So I guess however you want to describe it, it's a 19-foot span. It's conventionally built. It's not a culvert. It's not an arch or anything like that.
Right. Okay.
Just under the one.
Yes. What is the intent long-term for these roadways? Will they be driveways on private property? Will they be accepted by the town at some point?
They will not be accepted by their private roadway,
Okay.
maintained private.
Okay. So you don't, I'm assuming, have to have any kind of Mass DOT review for that bridge then?
Not Mass DOT, just local DPW. I'm sure that they're want to look at it themselves.
Okay. Cassie, any further comments from you?
No. I do have one written public comment that I received, which I can read, and then we can turn it over to any public comments that attendees here online have, or in person. But I think everyone in person is for that. So,
and I think we will have you read these into the record, but I think a lot of these issues we've touched on already in our discussion.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready to read them if you're ready to hear them. Okay, so this comment is from Robert Parent, who is not an abutter of the project, but is an Easthampton resident, I believe on South Street. I can check that. But he's an Easthampton resident. Okay, comment is as follows. Cassie, I just received your email regarding the commission's meeting on Monday night. I've had a chance to take a brief look at the documents that were submitted to support the project and have made the following observations. Please note that these observations are not intended to be an exhaustive review of the documents. They should still be reviewed in detail by the city's technical staff or an outside consultant retained by the commission. If you have any questions regarding my observations, please let me know. I'm not planning to attend the commission meeting since I believe my observations are clear enough to be understood by the commission without further explanation. Please feel free to forward them to the applicant. Note, I'm not advocating for or against this project, but if it is approved, it is important that it fully complies with city, state, and federal stormwater requirements and is protective of public safety, public health, and the environment. Comment 1, no test pits or test borings were completed on the property to the east of the intermittent stream to confirm the published soil information as well as to gather information needed for the design of the proposed stormwater management facilities. Comment 2, logs are provided for 8 test pits that were completed on the west side of the intermittent brook, but no information is provided regarding the date, weather conditions, name, or qualifications of the evaluator. Comment 3, figures 1 and 2 pre and post development subcatchment plans are missing from the stormwater report. Comment 4, Section 1.A references use of underground infiltration trenches for the building roof drains. This does not appear to be consistent with other language in the report and is not shown on design plans. Comment 5, it is stated in Section 1B that the subject property was previously developed with approximately 67,880 feet squared of building area. This does not appear to be correct. Comment 6, the hydraulic soil group listed in Section 1B of the stormwater report should be reviewed and confirmed. The text references the soil report for Berkshire County, not Hampshire County. I was able to track down a copy of the soil report for Hampshire County, Central Part, Amherst area, which indicates that the Sitco and Boxford soils are Group C, not Group D. This is important because it factors into whether or not stormwater infiltration is practicable, as well as significantly impacting the pre and post runoff analyses. Comment 7, there is no technical data to support the statement in Section D1, which says all soils on site should be classified as HSGD, end quote. There is a statement that the soils were found to be, quote, silt loams and compacted fine sandy loams, end quote. USDA would typically classify these soils to be Group B or C, not D. Grain size analysis or other laboratory testing should be completed to confirm the hydrologic soil group, if not what is published by USDA. Visual observation alone should not be used to make this critical interpretation. Volume 3 of the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook includes a detailed discussion of what is required to demonstrate compliance with handbook requirements, as well as soil investigation and evaluation requirements. Comment 8, compliance with the Stormwater Standard 3, recharge. Recharge is still required to the maximum extent practicable. Just want to let this person in the meeting. Okay. Sorry. Here we go. Okay, recharge is still required to the maximum extent practicable for sites with Group C and D soils. Presence of Group C and D soils does not waive this requirement. Comment 9. In Section 4, it is stated that the phosphorus removal requirements of Standard 4 are complied with by use of the detention basins to retain stormwater. Detention basins do not retain stormwater. Instead, they detain stormwater and may release it at a reduced flow rate. The city and EPA requirement to retain 1 inch of runoff as a means of achieving treatment has not been complied with. Either phosphorus treatment will need to be provided, or stormwater retention facilities such as permeable paving or to infiltrate stormwater will need to be provided. Note, the EPA requirement cannot be waived by the city without the risk of noncompliance with the city's MS4 permit. Comment 10. There are a few inconsistencies between the data presented in Table 5 in Section 3E and the HydroCAD printouts. The conclusion that the peak rate of runoff is reduced through the use of numerous detention basins appears to be correct. Note, given the significant number of detention basins proposed to be in close proximity to dense residential development, it may be prudent to require fencing to protect public safety, as well as careful review of the soil conditions in the detention basin areas to ensure that they will not retain water and lead to mosquito and other public health issues. Also, provisions for maintaining the detention basins should be incorporated in the project design. Okay, last comment 11. Section 3E states that the Easthampton requirement to maintain or reduce runoff volumes has been complied. Tables 8 and 9 present information that appears to support this statement. I reviewed the HydroCAD printouts provided with the stormwater management report and could not locate the source of the post-development data that is contained in these tables. Instead, the data that I found suggested that post-development runoff volumes would increase significantly as a result of the project. This is what I would expect given the project will significantly increase the impervious area on the site and no stormwater infiltration facilities are proposed. And that is the end of the comment provided.
Thank you, Cassie. Are there any other comments from members of the public present tonight, either online or in the room?
See, Garrett Stover has raised his hand. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Garrett, and say your comment.
Hi there. I'm Garrett Stover. I'm a volunteer land conservation advisor for Pascomic Conservation Trust. And we've been kind of blindsided by this. I look back at the Stop and Shop proposal and note that there was a conservation restriction that would have separated the development from the natural areas around it. So we're trying to catch up here. So I do have a few comments, and some of this may sound like it's not jurisdictional matters, but please bear with me. So this project is one of the largest that Easthampton has seen, certainly in many years. The parcel in question may front on Northampton Street, but though this is not obvious from the proponents' maps, it also extends deep into the Manhan River Wildlife Corridor. This is the critical link between the Connecticut River, the Oxbow, Easthampton's undeveloped northwestern corner, and the hill towns. And that's an area that not only aquatic species, but bear, deer, coyote, and other wildlife used to pass through densely populated Easthampton. Therefore, the project's potential impact should be considered with utmost care. Aspects such as adequacy of proposed stormwater control systems and the accuracy of wetland delineations should be independently confirmed. We do have a direct interest in the fate of this land, in that Pascomic Conservation's Trust Ed Dwyer Conservation Area off Pleasant Street, the Terrace View, is directly opposite the parcel on the far bank of the Manhan. Buildings in the north section of the development would be visible from Pascomic's trails, and under 400 feet, there's a building that's under 400 feet from the trails. So the loss to our visitors' experience of nature is one impact this project would produce. I know that's not a jurisdictional matter. Perhaps more important are the effects it would have on wildlife and plant life. The substantial portion of the development is located near the Manhan, with one building sited just over 200 feet from the river. The stream running through the site, into which the stormwater structures from the development are proposed to daylight, discharges directly into the Manhan River. That stream does so in a reach of the Manhan identified by the state's Biomap 3 as aquatic and as wetland core habitat. In fact, some 600 feet of the stream reaching up into the heart of the proposed development was designated as aquatic core buffer area. Apart from physically severing the wildlife corridor on the north bank of the Manhan and deterring wildlife with the human and pet animal encroachments, likely impacts include increased erosion and sedimentation, degrading the important aquatic habitat, litter and pollution infiltrating into the surrounding natural area, and even heat island effects from the large expanses of paving and roof. So we understand that many of these effects lie outside the Commission's regulatory role. Still, they do mean that the Commission's scrutiny of the aspects which are regulated should be rigorous. Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Are there any other comments from the public?
I'm not yet seeing any indicated online here.
Hearing none. We obviously have requested additional information, and as noted, there's additional information that we need from Natural Heritage before we could issue anything anyways. So I think at this point, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion for continuance to our next meeting.
I'll make a motion. We continue to January 9th at 6 p.m.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Commissioner Budrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Carr?
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
Motion carries. So this item will be continued until 6 p.m. on January 9th.
Who
Thank
seconded
you
it?
guys very much for your time and your comments. We're working hard to address everything and get it back to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, you said it, right?
He said-
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Sorry,
Thank you.
sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, have a nice night.
You can strike that.
That will work.
All right. We have no requests for certificate of compliance this evening. So we'll move on to enforcement actions. Kathy, do we have any updates?
The only one would have been for this project, the enforcement associated with the project you just heard. If we can, I'd like to ask that we take item 9B out of order. People in attendance for that item here.
Sorry, which letter was that?
9B,
As in boy.
yes.
Motion to take 9B out of order.
Black.
Do we have a second?
Second.
9B is Nonotuck Park preliminary review. All those in favor, Commissioner Budrick, Commissioner Carr?
I'm not sure. Did you say 8?
9B.
Aye. All the way through.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Nonotuck Park preliminary review. We have someone here, perhaps from the planning office.
Yes. Can I say it's okay?
Yeah. Would you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Yes, I'm Jeff Bagum, the city planner here in Easthampton. Thanks for hearing me out of order. Appreciate that. There were some materials that were submitted to the commission. If you have that available, that'd be great. If Cassie might be able to share it on the screen. I have a printed copy. I am expecting potentially someone from GZA joining me as well as part of this conversation. Whether or not they arrive here at 7, they were planning on coming at 7.
Do you want to
Maybe-
wait or, because we can do other items before, I guess.
No, I think I'm gonna start, if that's okay.
Yes,
Maybe Nate will arrive if you guys have any technical questions, but Cassie's okay. So
I'm sure
my
I can.
initial goal in coming to tonight was to try to beat the snow, which I did not do. So there's an area on the map that is wooded, and it basically connects Nonotuck Park to Williston property and the new Mountain View School. In 2020, Williston assisted the city, it was 2021, assisted the city by agreeing to delineate this area to help us with, some trail planning work. So what our hope is that we can submit an RDA to the commission to verify the delineation. The problem that we encountered is that we're going to the winter season. So there are a series of photographs that would be available, and Cassie's been to the site. And I didn't know if that would be a potential option, is to see if we could get the delineation agreed upon and talk to the commission about some relatively simple enhancements to particularly one section of the trail. What we've found is with the new school opening, the number of people using the trail has increased a lot. And there had been a little bit of adjusting going on with the trail location. I think someone went in there and moved dead trees to make the path a little bit easier for walking. So there was a previous path that kind of pitched off of the Nantucket access road and kind of went straight down. And what had happened is someone kind of moved some stuff through the woods to make it a little more gradual. And that trail is like 50% in good shape, and then the remaining 50% is turning out to be really muddy. And what's happening is people are now traversing to the side of that, and that's getting impacted, and there's a third path forming. And so the overall goal is potentially a grand project, a big bridge, 10 feet wide, helical piles, and a path that's grand and ADA accessible, but that could be years and years away, plus millions of dollars. So in the short term, what we're hoping to do is potentially create a couple log bridges, or at least permission to bring plans to the commission and talk about this connector, basically from the park access road to that area that's labeled lower crossing. There's an existing footbridge. The general plan would be to leave that in place. It's just the approach to the footbridge needs some enhancements. And then there's a small section right after the bridge on the lower side of the page that, right around there, they view is probably jurisdictional, and then the rest of the hill is buffered. So I was here to just try to preview it with the commission and find out if there's any option to proceed in the winter. So,
is this, to better orient us a little bit, is this right by the basin that was just dredged?
Yeah,
Mass
yeah,
Road? It
right
is,
here, yeah.
And is it just past it?
I would
Yeah.
say
Right
from the
back
page left, yeah.
Yeah, like
Okay.
this is maybe the start of it over here,
Yeah.
Okay,
maybe, but yeah, it's further into the park
okay.
from the base.
So this is an area that a number of us are pretty familiar with from that project
Right.
as well.
This is, you just start to go into the park right after you go across that little bridge down to the left. It goes right down along the water, the edge of the
Other side. So if you're in a vehicle, you're coming down the hill, you just entered Nantucket Park, you're going down the hill, and it's actually on the right side.
Oh,
On the left side is the Leo Tobin Trail,
yeah.
which we also have, ideas.
Issues with that, too.
Issues with that, and there's erosion happening on the left, and that bank going, that's the actual pond proper, Sean Pond. But for the purposes of enhancing the access to the school, that the trail on the right side was more heavily traveled.
That goes through the park.
Yeah. I did submit a series of photographs to try to
Yeah.
visually represent so that's the access road. And then on the left is what you were just talking about, the Nantucket Pond on your left, the trail is on the right. And then the next image, you can see the access road dipped off to the right. And this is that route that got cleared out. It's just a little less steep cutting through there. The next image just is a little bit further along. I included this one because you can see that the trees were dead. They were already down and they were moved. And then the next image shows that there was some effort to delineate the right side of it with dead materials. And then as you approach those next couple trees is where it's the path of least resistance through there.
Right.
It's also I believe it's probably in the wetland.
Yeah.
So you can see the flag on that tree. So there's some discussion to be had about trying to maybe move the trail to the left of, what is it, like maybe it's a Musclewood if I remember my trees. Someone said that to me. But we're right on the line of where we're actually in the resource area and adjacent to it. And then maybe the next image, It's just kind of the path, and now walkers are going on the image left to get out of that. They're going around that large tree and then kind of taking a beeline back to the bridge.
Right.
So that's really the area that we're really trying to focus on to see what we can come up with that would be agreeable through an RDA, hopefully.
And I think of this area, if you go, oh, yeah.
Oh,
so
and
there's-
then,
Yeah,
so
this
this
spot.
is, yeah, you're basically standing at the footbridge looking back up to the access road.
Yeah.
And my illustration was just that it's a little bit of a tangle in terms of different access points.
Yeah.
And it all convenes down at the footbridge.
I always would have come down on the right by the guardrail / retaining.
Correct.
Right there, and is the one all the way to the left, did that open up as a result of the access for the dredging?
No,
Or was that always there? I
It's-
just never noticed it.
I think the one straight up to the guardrail it's been the main access point for quite a while. And then the next one to the left going up to the guardrail was also there. The third one to the left was kind of someone who had moved the dead trees out to make it a little more gradual. I think people saw strollers going through there, and that push up, up and down that hill is pretty steep, and bikes. So
What are you thinking, Jeff, in terms of materials for this more temporary version?
yeah, this was what my understanding is got permitted at Lathrop. So the initial hope was this in close proximity to the wetland area. There are some, there's an uphill slope going more towards the school, and there would be a conversation about filling it, maybe with gravel, back in gravel, to be more in line with what Williston has. So Williston went through a permitting process a couple of years ago, and those trails are kind of in great prime shape, and we're kind of left with, like the muddy, no one touched it for a while conditions. So we want to try to work on enhancing that. So bog bridges in very close proximity to the wetlands, and then some kind of trail enhancement up the hill in areas that are either 100-foot buffer or completely out of the jurisdiction.
Okay. So yeah, my thought, I know this area pretty well. A number of us do from past projects and
Yes.
from life in the city. And I also think it's a relatively, you've got well-defined steep banks on both sides. So I think that the wetland line is not one that's overly hard to assess. Is it flagged now? I saw there was that one flag in the picture. Are these recent?
They were done in 2021. I would say that a lot of them are still intact out there. I don't know if all of them are intact.
Okay.
That would have been a good question for GZA. They did the initial delineation. And I'm working on a scope of service with them to assist the planning department to come back to the commission with an RDA.
So they have a drawing with the delineation on it?
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, that's-
They have all the backup materials that they did,
So it's
their report from August 2021.
the path area, if you can
Yeah,
see that.
my inclination is that, especially if some of the flags or most of the flags are out there, that we could probably do a site visit and confirm whether we feel comfortable with the line.
Sure.
Given, I guess my caveat to that would be, if you wanted to make it official through an ANRAD, I don't know if we might want a closer investigation, but for the purposes of what you're looking at doing with relatively minor bridges that aren't going to have any significant impacts, I think I would feel comfortable moving forward along that path line over the winter, so you'd be able to get started. I don't know if others have comments.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, by doing something quick, we'll reduce the.
That's correct.
The expansion of the effects. Right.
Yeah,
So,
yes. And the only reason I might feel less comfortable formalizing it into an ANRAD is that then it stands for 3 years and it would apply to any project that would come before us.
There had been a conversation about coming in for permitting for I don't know if it's an appropriate phrase, the Cadillac, as we were describing it as the Cadillac, which is a ADA accessible grade from the access road to a crossing that would be a 10-foot wide bridge on helical piles, and then a 10-foot wide path going all the way to the school. But my concern with going through the permitting for that is first the cost and getting GZA involved, and we're not quite ready for that scale project. So the hope was to come in with an enhancement that could last for a couple of years. And there's got to be a discussion. The preliminary cost for the Cadillac, so to speak, was upward of $1 million. It's over $1 million. And so there's no specific grant funding source for that right now.
Right.
So we didn't want to come in with an NOI for that big of a project that would include tree removal and a lot of work that we're not quite sure if we're going to pursue ever. And so the bog bridges were kind of the middle ground for that.
That makes sense.
I'm a GZA counterpart, all right, so.
Thought you were just being friendly.
No, I think you were also an engineer with GZA.
So would it suit the current needs to go forward with an RDA for the version of the improvements that you're proposing now without officially formalizing the delineation, or are you really looking to have it official so that you can move forward with planning and design for the fancier version as well?
So, yeah, I think we need to confirm the delineation, because even the sort of temporary, if you want to call it, but the initial phase of the work will include disturbance within the wetland buffer and potentially some minor work in the wetland to extend the bog bridges. So from a permitting perspective, it makes sense to confirm that delineation down as part of this project. And then we can use that, assuming that it becomes a funding source in the future, to permit the larger project as well.
And if I'm not mistaken, the goal was to submit an RDA that would seek the delineation confirmation and show you preliminary design plans for the improvements that we're looking to do at this phase.
We may actually wind up submitting a full NOI. So the work for the temporary enhancements will include impacts in the wetland itself, not just buffer zone. So we would most likely be submitting a full NOI, not just an RDA for that, in accordance with regulations.
From what we've heard so far, it looks like you were really just proposing bog bridges that would be basically resting on the surface. Is there more to the impacts?
No,
that you're
that's
expecting?
correct, but it is technically an impact, but even just the footprint of the support, right, would be an impact in the wetland.
I believe in other projects, for Lake Brook, potentially on some of their plans or trails, we've allowed that through an RDA, haven't we?
Yes, and for
Surface bog bridges, we let those go.
an industrial place, I
Especially
think.
relative to what we're seeing as
Because
the impacts already. I think
right, the impact's worse
the bridge is less
going
than,
forward than
right.
the
We did
impact of
this
the bridge.
at the charter school too.
Yes.
Right.
yes.
Yeah, we're comfortable with that. We're more than happy to do it as an RDA. But
I think at Lathrop, one day also gonna like carry them in by
Yes.
machineries
Yeah.
that we disturb.
Right. Yeah. Do you know, would you need to have machinery involved here, or would it be hand construction?
I wouldn't expect, there really isn't access for heavy equipment. So it's most likely hand tools, wheelbarrows,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
people carrying lumber as they go in.
And could I add, so one thing, if can I show on the screen, that'll be a little easier. There was a path down lower, and I think what I tried to depict with the dash line is where I think the trail kind of got rerouted. As we were talking before, that's the steepest path off the guardrail. This is the second one, and I believe the path is generally through here, and you can see the wetland boundary goes up. And this is probably the part that's getting really muddy and impacted where we want to, that's the ideal location, I think, if, with some potential variation once GZA gets in there, we look at it, but that would be the part to continue through with Bog Bridge. And then probably another section as you approach the existing bridge. But why I really want to jump up is there's probably a little bit of work right on this landing here. It shows that it's just barely in the wetland, but a bridge section here. What we would like to do, it was a conversation about equipment, which could potentially come down from Mountain View School, would be to upgrade the path going this way. It's very rooted and ruddy.
It's not muddy, but it's got substantial roots. And so that might be the area we would, in the RDA, we might show you a plan to bring some kind of fill down to meet this point. But it would be along the lines of what Wilson did on their trail. But that would be within the buffer area and probably within that RDA.
So that would be something you'd be doing this winter. So that's not the Cadillac.
That's not the Cadillac. We would probably be aiming for the spring to actually do it, but get the permitting in place and the funding in place to have it implemented in the spring. Not the Cadillac.
Is that the bridge that's shown in the photo?
Mhm.
It's floated away a few times, doesn't it?
There was once in the, yes, it was around when the basins were getting worked on.
Yes.
There was a beaver incident.
Yeah,
that flooded that whole area.
they floated around. a little
Yes.
bit.
So the fill, the road is behind us in this image. The fill he's talking about would be at the end of this bridge and up. You can
Right.
kind of see how the land slopes up that way.
And you'd be filling that in with gravel?
I don't know that the surface material has been chosen. I mean,
Yeah,
I
something erosion resistant, typically. You know, as opposed to just the soil that would just continue to erode over time. So crushed out whenever.
So this view, the Nonotuck Park, you're walking into it and behind us is going back toward
The road.
school.
Nope,
Okay,
opposite.
that's it.
This is towards the school, and then behind us is like the road, which leads to like Lowndes Road, I think it is, like goes around that corner there.
what you can't tell from this image is if you cross the bridge and are going up, there's actually a pretty well-defined trail that goes up in between the trees. I mean, it's pretty wide. It's a walkable area. It's just that the roots, you know, it would be great to be able to enhance it so kids can walk through there. That would be the goal. The Cadillac was more of like a going to 10 feet wide and paving it to really provide this as like a bike path access. And so we're definitely like several steps below that in terms of just making it passable.
And the long-term goal is to make it an accessible route. So to meet the Fish and Wildlife standards for accessibility for trails. As opposed to this right now, even with some minor improvements, will not meet that accessibility standard, but get us closer to having a safe path. Or at least safer.
Yeah, so again, for the longer term, larger project, I feel more comfortable waiting to spring to confirm the line. But for what we're talking about with low impact bog bridges, I think we could move forward without doing an official ANRAD style confirmation that's going to stand for the entirety of the longer term project.
Yeah, I think that works well for the scope of this first step. We would be talking to GZA about additional delineations for the other design. It starts to snowball pretty quickly.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
When we start to talk about a bigger improvement here.
Yeah.
And my real fear is just that if it
won't get done.
It won't get done, and then we'll be left with a pretty rough area.
Yeah.
That could get worse. Because I don't think people will stop using it.
Right.
Great. So we will circle back. I'll coordinate with GZA. We might not end up back before until like February or something, but this is good guidance for us.
Good.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, good night.
Right over here. Thank you.
Night.
Jeff, do you have a couple seconds? Are you gonna be tied
Yeah.
up? I wanna-
You don't have another thing for this meeting or you?
No, I-
Okay, cool. Yeah. That is nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Back to our agenda order.
Yes.
Kathy, you said there was nothing on the enforcement order for 93 Northampton, no updates there.
No updates. In my understanding, when I last spoke with Dan Nishi, was that he was waiting to produce the final restoration plan, depending on how the discussions about the new NOI potentially impacted what the commission requests for that. So that's why we haven't received it yet. And at that time, it made sense to me that, yeah, he wouldn't want to write something and then just have it be totally revised. But does that still stand for you guys? Do you want him to wait to?
That's That's an interesting question. I'm interested in hearing others' thoughts. It is in the spirit of the enforcement order and what was requested that we continue to move forward with that. And be able to have the insight of what we would approve and be expecting for restoration in hand to then know how to integrate the two. I think that would be my inclination, that we should continue to move forward.
Okay. Okay.
The proposed bridge crossing out of a different location.
It is,
Correct.
it's like slightly further
Downstream. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
So it's not like it's a store or something.
right,
It's screwed up.
right.
That's
Yeah, Kathy, I think, let's ask them to push forward with that. Yeah. Oh, wrong thing.
Oh, do you want the 17th?
Okay, I give it, actually, I wanna maybe see those anyway.
I can print this like tonight too, if y'all, I mean,
Yeah.
at the end.
That'd be great.
It's
I'd like to
it's
color
still hard to read the
it,
text
yeah.
on those.
Yeah.
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 All right, open space updates?
Okay, for Echodale, I do have some, she finished, the Conway School student did present her midway presentation. She's going to be presenting her final design some point coming soon, like in January, I think. I'm meeting with her tomorrow, to kind of help her go over it. If she does like a final presentation, I'll let you all know. But, again, once we even have that in hand, it's just like the beginning of the conversation of like what we can do in the future. So I'll just kind of keep you all posted as I get the final stuff. But, and then as far as I know, the last communication I had for the invasives management there was that Jay did the mowing, they did the treatment. So now we're just waiting till the spring to do more with that.
Yes,
Did you say they did it?
Yeah, yep.
all right, compliance updates. Which projects do we have information on, Kathy?
Okay, so I've got just an update for the school that I did complete. And
Which one is that?
sorry, that's item I believe.
Okay.
HI. I did do a site visit to the school on the 8th with Dan Murphy to kind of try to inspect the stormwater management structures because they're getting close to want to come for a certificate of compliance, but I've reiterated to them that we need to the stormwater system needs to be correct before the commission would issue a certificate. Some places it's like they were good, they were clean. There's still some spots that are not fully stabilized, and there's still some structures that need to be cleaned. The biggest one is the detention pond in the rear. That's certainly not finished yet. There's just a lot of sediment in the bottom there once they finally drained it out. So there's more work to be done. So it's just kind of still in flux. But
Did they ended up having to pump that out,
they did.
correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And how's the under drain been installed yet?
Yes, and it seems to be working. It's not retaining water in the same way it was before. So yeah, it seems to be draining out pretty nice and slowly. I didn't see any sediment at the outlet of that drain either. So it seems to be working correctly in that way.
I have a couple just related things. I think there's one or possibly two areas. I just go there all the time. So when you're going down, you go down the road, you come off Park Street down the road.
Yeah.
And there's some stone check dams on the right, but two of those areas, not in a row, but separated, have permanent pools of stormwater in them in years. And I don't, maybe those two spots are supposed to operate differently because it looks like they're not stone check jams, but there's something else. But
Is it like at the end?
I
Or are you talking about somewhere in the middle on that stretch there?
am talking about in the middle.
Okay, so not closer to the school.
I have one bad picture out of my car window of one of them.
So on the right side heading towards the school?
On the right side.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you go there, you'll drive down, oh yeah, there's water.
Okay.
There's that, and then there's actually two areas where I've been there during the rain. One at the low point there, right at the White Brook crossing where there's a larger basin down the bottom and water was ponding up and over the road.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not supposed to do that. And another area on one of the walkways going into the elementary school entrance, where there's a rain garden and the vegetation grade is too high, so it's over the sidewalk when it's raining. And like, it's gonna be, that's gonna address, gonna be a maintenance nightmare, which means like they're gonna be putting salt.
Salt
crazy.
And can you say again where it's going over the sidewalk?
I got a picture of
Oh,
that.
sweet. And you can email this to me. But is that like near the preschool you said?
The elementary school.
Near the elementary school?
entrance As you walk towards it.
Okay. Yeah, I had other notes and stuff that I had for them. I need to email it to them still. Thank you. You said the grade was too high.
I think so. I think they tried to get at one point, but I don't think they got.
Cool. Yeah, so that'll probably be like an ongoing thing. Just trying to work all those pieces out until then once those seem done, I'll be like, I would be like, now it makes sense to come for the COC, but
Yeah.
they're not there yet. So
And they have underground detention too, right? Like,
I believe yes,
Yeah.
at the main basins, there's like, you can see, I don't know how to explain it, but I think yes.
maybe they don't. For some reason in my mind, I'm picturing that they do, but if there is, then
Not sure. I was remembering it all being surface.
Cause there's those basins that have like pipes that you can look into them if you
Yep.
wanted to. If you know what I'm talking about, where a lot of times it's like a slope and then there was still fencing at the base of those slopes and then it's like this rock.
yeah.
I can show you a picture if you guys want, but those have like pipes extending it out of them that you could, if you wanted to, like look in. And then it has like an overflow and like if it fills up and then it'll drain down.
I
But
think that's what I'm thinking of.
let me see if, I have a link to the pictures here, so it's not hard to throw them up. Let's see. Because we looked into a lot of the catch basins too, and just popped those, and those look clean. They said they vacuumed them out and everything, but there's, here's a good example of one.
Yeah, those are the areas that are like when you're cleaning, and so you know, there's on the top of them. It's careful.
Okay, so when this is the road into the school here. Wow, it's so tiny. Hold on. Looks silly on this page. Okay, this is the road to the school back here, and then on the right, the school's behind us. It's kind of like everything is sloping towards this area. This used to have silt fencing all around it at this bottom level to keep stuff from coming in. But there's an inlet behind me that's just other water is getting directed to this area, and then like to the right here, there's like a pipe, like a tube sticking out of the ground. It has like a cover over it, and you could look in. So I don't know if it's supposed to retain water. I'm not as familiar with all this, unfortunately. So maybe it's not, but
Sure what that would be, but it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have underground detention.
okay.
Right in the midst was a surface basin. That doesn't make sense, I don't think. I'm not exactly sure. We have to pull out the plans.
Okay.
But I don't remember there being underground system
Okay.
on this project. I thought it was all surface.
I could be completely wrong.
I can take a closer look at it. And it was more just like, I mean, I think generally I want to like talk to their engineer or something, like their design people, because it's like, is it functioning the way that it was designed?
Right.
Or is it built the way that it was designed, but it's not functioning the way that we
Right.
wanted or anticipated?
Right.
That's kind of like the big question.
Right.
Yeah.
It is kind of cool though, that awning over the elementary school entrance, and it kind of all funnels down to this triangular like opening, and when it's raining, the water cascades down and into a rain garden, and it's like kind of a water feature.
Cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's pretty neat.
Nice. Okay, those are all the updates I had for that item.
Cassie, anything from Dan Murphy or others at the city on COC for the pump house or River Street?
My gosh, I'm sorry. I've been dragging my feet on that. I just need to do it. So I will talk. I know I said this before, but I'm going to talk to them. So it's those two ones. The River Street one, again, should be quite simple because now it's covered under bundled order.
Right.
And then for the pump house, it's essentially done. So you just need to just do it. So I
It is
will
done,
concur.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's
We're just
done.
worried about erosion
Yeah.
on the hill, but
Yeah.
it all got fixed and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be great to close those out. and
Agreed.
get them off the list.
Agreed. Okay, let me just make a note here.
And actually, where did we ever land on Pleasant Street Mills? Okay, got extended to the end of next year.
Yep.
Has there been any action on that? To
Mhm.
get things corrected?
No, and I need to talk to Jeff about it.
Okay.
So probably something that once this Taste Tap project is done, he'll have more bandwidth for, but I'll talk to him about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Other updates?
I do, hold on. Yes, so item P, this is 99 Mount Tom Avenue. It's quick though. I don't know if you need to recuse yourself. Or maybe you do. It's just, my update is that they are likely to request suspended reporting soon as they've achieved a lot of stabilization, but I haven't gone out there to confirm that they're ready for that yet. So I'm just waiting for them to tell me that they're ready. That's the only update. Yeah. Okay, and then 410 Main Street. So this is item R. The animal hospital, this is just a stormwater permit. There's no NOI or anything associated with this. They also are likely going to be requesting suspended reporting soon. Just because they're at a stage, they're going to stop for the winter and they feel like they've stabilized it. I have to go out there and confirm that too. Just as an
Moved
update.
into the new location, I believe.
I think
Yeah, I
so.
think so.
They would need to
Looks like
demolish.
it.
I think they just demolished the recent
Okay.
one and then finished the paving and everything.
They're
the old
all over
one.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I still don't know where the project is. I don't think I was here for that day. And I cannot for the life of me picture where on Main Street that's located.
Yeah, it's pretty,
Yeah.
It's almost out to Southampton.
yeah, it's down there.
Yeah,
Oh.
So the side of the horizon.
Oh, okay, I know where it is.
you're a
Great.
Valley Co-op person, not a big Y person.
Okay. You said that with disdain.
I'm just a kid. Just a kid.
I know where it is. Okay.
West
Yeah.
of accused me of being a snooty Easthampton.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
All right. Any others, Kathy?
No, that's all I have for ongoing projects.
I
If
have a
anybody has any
question,
questions,
actually.
yes.
When we were looking at this and talking, I was like thinking about just like the other parcels along the road, and I was like, once this, there's a Starbucks coming in, right? We did not review that.
We didn't. The reason is, so yeah, it came from the commission in a weird way for that parcel because it was tied to the original ANRAD. That piece just for the Starbucks got carved off and became its own property.
Yep.
But it's not within any jurisdictional areas. So the commission wouldn't review its
Yeah.
installation once it becomes a new property.
Well, we didn't get a stormwater permit application.
It must have been the planning.
It probably went to planning in that instance, because that's kind of how we kind of sorted it out.
Yeah.
To review them is that if it goes to the planning board, not the commission, then they do the stormwater permit.
That makes complete sense, and that's how it's supposed to work.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, things work like they're supposed to work on like.
It does throw it off though when there's a construction project that we haven't heard about.
Yes.
There's a Starbucks coming in. How do I
So-
know that?
Well, I heard about it because they need to get a building permit and that comes to me to confirm whether or not
Right,
there's
you're in a-
commission stuff
Right.
Or a buffer
related.
zone or
So,
something.
yeah. So in theory, those things are coming along and someone's looking at it from us. So.
What it probably means that I'm not the only city that knows anything about the stormwater.
It's good, right?
It's definitely a good thing.
That's good.
That's a good
We
thing.
did, I remember talking about it, but I think it was the last time.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, because it was kind of a confusing thing on like how, I think we ended up issuing a partial certificate of compliance just for that parcel.
Right.
So that it didn't lift the whole old ANRAD, because the old ANRAD is like still recorded even though it expired. It was like kind of thing for this
Yeah.
property.
Something like that.
Yeah. I might be explaining incorrectly because it was kind of confusing, but I confirmed with DEP was the right path forward. So whatever we ended up doing.
All right. On to general business.
Yes.
Meeting minute for November 14th. Yeah, I've got a copy here. If anybody wants some. Was that our last meeting?
It was, we canceled the one that was supposed to be on the 28th because
Right.
the only thing was going to be, yeah, everyone was gone and the,
I was here.
You were here?
You were
Made it?
available, yes.
there,
Didn't want to meet with me all by
Have folks
myself.
had a chance to review? Does anyone care to make a motion?
I had a chance.
I'll move to accept the minutes from the.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, Commissioner Butcher?
Aye.
Commissioner Carr? Sure. Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Cassie.
Mhm.
We've already covered item B. C, the Eversource and Tennessee gas notifications.
Yeah, so this one, again, all these activities are exempt, but there were so many at once, I figured I'd just update y'all, especially because some of them are like active projects. The first one, Eversource let us know that they're doing, here's all three of them, but Eversource is doing maintenance of a line that's along Williston Avenue. So it's right here in the center of town, but it looks like it is correct that it is exempt maintenance activity under the act. So they just need to notify us, or I don't even know if they need to notify us, but they did notify us. If people disagree, we can go down that path and figure it out. But basically, my understanding is the rule of thumb is if it's a utility and it's being replaced in kind,
Is it
it's
within the
exempt.
roadway?
Yes, that's my understanding. Yeah. The next one, unless there's any questions about that, was Tennessee Gas. They're doing maintenance of their,
I didn't even know Tennessee Gas came through.
it's near Glendale. Glendale Avenue.
I think it's underground pipeline.
Yeah, it's an underground
Over
pipeline.
by my house.
Yeah, yeah.
You see it when you walk through
My
Pomeroy
kids go sledding on
Meadow.
That adds up.
Stationary.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know the full extent of it. Only reason, so I got the letter and then,
Vegetation.
yeah, yep. Someone from Glendale reached out to me because they were concerned. They wanted more information. So I was like, oh, people will notice this work likely.
This is actually the tasty top.
Oh, do I? I did really love it. And then the last one is from National Grid. This is their yearly operational plan, I think is the acronym there.
Yeah.
But it's basically what their plan is going forward for the year. And if we have any comments, we can submit comments. They particularly want to know if there's any overlap of public or private wells. I don't think that that's the case. Seems like it's mapped correctly for the most part. But again, exempt activity.
Yeah, we have very few private wells, that's my understanding.
But yeah, so I just wanted to put that on record because some of them people might ask about in the future. I want to make sure y'all knew that that was going to happen.
Great. What is going on actually with Liberty Street? Was that on our list?
Yeah,
Or was that an RDA?
we issued an RDA for that. But I do get weekly monitoring reports for it.
Wasn't it supposed to be like in and out, done? And
Yeah.
we've been at it for a long time now. Has something changed?
I don't think anything has changed as far as I understand it, or I haven't received anything that said it was going to change. But I can go back and look at the minutes to see if that was the case. Maybe I just misunderstood, but
Okay.
I was also like, oh, wow, it's still going. But
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a very quick operation.
yeah, I don't know.
It's the replacement of the gas pipeline that crosses Liberty Street behind Riverside Industries.
But also the installation of that horizontal directional drilling.
Right.
And so that was new. That's what warranted the RDA is
Right.
that, but it went under. And so we got the requirement was that they were going to give us a frack out contingency plan, which we received.
Yep.
And I don't think we required reporting, but we've been getting reporting. So everyone wants to see that. There've been some things like clean this, clean that, and to go back and look, there might be more, but I had to look at it to remember.
And wetlands ordinance discussion, we still need to have our subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, no, yeah.
We'll table that until the new year.
Yep, I apologize. I haven't been able to get back on track with that, but I'm not letting it go.
Anything further?
Our person was reinstated into the wetlands protection person was reinstated.
Oh, yeah. So
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a general note that the circuit rider, was Mark Simpson.
Right, Mark.
Then he was no longer the circuit rider, and it was yeah.
shot.
So then it was Tom Gruskus was they hired two essentially, and then gave them different regions based off of like the name of your town alphabetically, and then they hired him back because that configuration like wasn't going to work anymore. Someone was going on medical leave, I think, and so Mark Simpson is now back as the guy. He's not doing this project because he was involved in consulting for the enforcement order at the Tasty Top project. So he's not involved in that one, but likely into the future, he'll be doing all the comment letters into the future. Yeah. Yeah. It's basically our contact at DEP. And he's the person who receives all of our permits and then chooses whether or not to appeal them and he also issues all the comment letters and file numbers. Yeah. And when there's like a question of like how to interpret the act or like something like that, we usually will call and have that be the like, more definitive word on it, I guess. So.
I believe they have that name because they have a circuit and they used to like go around. I mean, Mark would come and visit periodically.
Oh, yeah.
In for a meeting.
He also said that he's willing to come visit, but he didn't want to come while we were reviewing the taste tap stuff.
Yeah, that's
So, but in the future, he's like, I'll come back and be here again. So,
Yeah.
Some of our federal courts are like 6:30 court because they used to ride in on their horses and go.
yeah, I looked it up once. It's horse related. He has like a horse image in his signature, which is pretty cool.
Do we have a motion to
I just want, should I ask if these people have any other comments or just have two other people today? Garrett and Diane, do you guys have any other comments or questions for the commission or before we go?
Nope.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, thank you. And I concur with everything Garrett had presented. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for coming.
I just also wanted to add, as a new member of this committee, we want to, are we allowed, apart from our role on the Conservation Commission, to comment on the taste to top development? Can I, just as a citizen of Easthampton,
Go to the planning board meetings or things like that.
and make comments, or does that conflict with my role?
It's a good question. And also Commissioner August had asked the same thing. Most likely that you can, as long as you make it clear that you're representing yourself and not the Conservation Commission. What we did is, for what I asked Commissioner August to do was to call there's the Ethics Commission. They have an attorney of the day. You can call them and just candidly ask that, and they'll tell you like what the best practice is. Yeah, I can get that number to you. It's pretty easy to call, but because we were curious about it, like, hey, what are the rules? Like, if there's overlap, but we're leaning towards it's probably acceptable because you're a resident. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's any issue.
All right.
Go to the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't mean that someone won't give you a hard time for it, but of course, just means.
Right, it would be maybe ignorance, bias, or something like
Yes.
that.
There is what's right and wrong versus like what makes people yell.
Yeah, what makes
Yes.
people
Not
Well,
well aligned
exactly.
in many cases.
Well, right, what makes people comfortable?
Yeah.
People like, gives people grounds for criticizing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, two different things sometimes.
But yeah, I think if you were to go to the planning board meeting and just, if you wanted to make a public comment, make it clear that you're not speaking on behalf of the commission.
Right.
I think it would be my main advice, but yeah, I can send you that number if you want.
Better not even say, because people. If I say I'm part of the commission, then they'll be like, she's part of the commission.
More disclosure is better in my opinion, but
Yeah.
yeah, I can get you that phone number. You can call.
If it were me, I would disclose.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, sorry, it's your job to ask.
All those in favor, Commissioner Buttrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Carr?
Aye.
Commissioner Weeks?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
It is 7:39, and we are concluding this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting is January 9th at 6 p.m.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.